The title cards of a game trailer should ideally evoke that game and that game alone. Anything else risks making it look and sound very generic. Hi, my name is Derek Liu, and this is Video Game Trailer Academy, a series of videos to help you make better game trailers. Trailer title cards are a handy way to quickly communicate ideas which can then be expanded upon when they're paired with visuals. For games, they're typically used to call out the pedigree of the creators, describe game mechanics, tell the story, quantify content and calling out features, build hype, and share press quotes. Calling out the pedigree is merely saying something like, "From the creators of Firewatch," or "Devolver Digital presents," which can work if the developers or publishers of a game have reached a level of acclaim that means people will get excited to hear there's a new game being released by them. But if the audience isn't likely to recognize the name of the people being called out, this approach should be avoided. Not all games' mechanics need to be explained by title cards, but in some cases it would take much longer to understand the game from watching footage alone. For example, the trailers for Superhot simply flashed onto the screen, "Time moves when you move," which gives us enough understanding to decipher the footage, which is a mix of real-time and slow-motion action of enemies being shot and punched. Speaking of deciphering, in the trailer I made for Heaven's Vault, it was very important to communicate the central mechanic for deciphering an ancient language. So we simply have a title card which says, "Decipher a lost language." And the trailer for Afterparty did a great job describing the game's central premise with the title cards, "Talk your way out of hell," "Flirt your way out of hell," "Cheat your way out of hell," "Dance your way out of hell," and "Party your way out of hell." In these cases, the title cards effectively explain the premise of the game, while also differentiating it from all the other games on the market. After all, how many other games can you think of which can be described this way? The only thing I can think of is that one part of King's Quest VI. Title cards also help tell the story, especially in cases where it's difficult to do it by piecing together lines of dialogue or in-game text. The trailer for the game If Found starts off with a coming-of-age story, which is not very specific, but the following title cards do a good job of fleshing it out with about finding friends, family, and yourself. And as the end of the world draws in. The word finding adds just a touch of specificity because without it, we don't know the character's relationship with friends and family. The vibe would be very different if the verb was losing, destroying, or surviving. But as it is, we can assume the character has no friends or family and doesn't understand themselves. End of the world premises in games are a dime a dozen, but this stands out when you combine the coming-of-age introspective story and hand-drawn art style. The title card is also a bit of a pun because based on the trailer, it looks like you interact with the game by erasing and/or painting over the hand-drawn art in the scenes. More simply, some title cards just explain story context, like in this one for District 9, which provides information which isn't said by anyone in the film, at least not so succinctly. Quantifying content and describing features are the most typical use for title cards in game trailers, but I find them to be the least effective at differentiating a game. I explain this in more detail in my video about quantified content, which I have a link to down below. But to sum up, it's not terribly effective to tell an audience there's a lot of something when they've yet to understand what the thing is. Just imagine seeing title cards which say 60 biomes, 4 playable characters, 10 boss battles, before you even understand what a level or boss battle in that game is even like. Calling out features is also a weak and generally ineffective way to differentiate a game. For example, look at these title cards. Challenging combat, procedurally generated levels, boss battles, power-ups and upgrades, permadeath, beautiful art, hours of content. What game is this describing? Well, it could be Spelunky, Dead Cells, Binding of Isaac, Flint Hook, Enter the Gungeon, Rogue Legacy, and so many more games. At their most stripped down, game feature title cards will not evoke one game alone, not unless they're somehow customized to fit the message of the game. For example, Supergiant Games' Hades does this well with the title cards, a godlike roguelike. which is a great way to differentiate them from the dozens, if not hundreds of roguelike games. The main features I do find necessary to call out are online or couch co-op multiplayer, since the footage alone cannot show that with 100% clarity, because the audience can't know if the characters on screen are controlled by AI or real people. The other time it's okay and even necessary to call out features and quantify them is in trailers for DLC, because in those cases, the trailers are made for people who have already bought in and understand what 3 new levels means for their play experience. Lastly, some title cards are there to build hype by using flowery language to excite the audience. This is also something which is very common but seldomly done in a way which I find at all convincing. The danger here is sounding like a distrustful salesperson trying to convince you something is great. If you need to understand why this doesn't work, just think of a trailer hyping itself by saying it's amazing, spectacular, or incredible, and instead picture a person in real life telling you the same thing about themselves. Will you take them at their word, or will you be a little suspicious? Broforce's trailers do a good job of combining their title cards with an over-the-top narrator, which is hard to not get hyped up by. But if your plan is to have some flowery, hype-building title cards in your trailer, but with a simple, unstylized font, you're fighting an uphill battle. It's the visual equivalent of a narrator sounding incredibly tepid in their delivery. Here are my tips for using title cards in trailers. First, see if you can make the trailer without title cards. If there's anything which simply cannot be understood through visuals, narration, or needs a bit of emphasis, then title cards might help. Second, strip your title cards of all visual flair and see if they still sound like they're describing your game, or if they sound like they could be used to describe any number of games. If your description is something like a 2D platforming roguelite action-adventure game with crafting and RPG elements, it's very unlikely people will hear that and think of your game alone. You need to find words or combinations of words which differentiate your game. My friend Dana Trabella from Spoken Wheel Strategy does PR and marketing for games, and she does an exercise with her clients where she asks them to describe their game in only 3 words. Try this out to see what truly stands out about your game and see if you can work that mentality into your title cards. You want them to be as specific as possible. And if you can, avoid quantifying the content and calling out the features of your game, unless you use language which makes them specific to your game. For inspiration, here are some of my favorite title cards which really make the game differentiate themselves. This one from Trans-Siberian Railway Simulator is just hilarious. These from the game Neocab, which I made trailers for, but can't take credit for the title cards. And this simple one from Sayonara Wild Hearts brilliantly sums up the game. I'm curious to know some of your favorite game trailer title cards and what made them stand out, so please share them in the comments. By the way, I send out game trailer making tips like this every Sunday via my mailing list, so if you'd like more, please subscribe at GameTrailerTips.com. As always, thank you to my top Patreon supporters who help me make more videos like this. Links to all the trailers in this video are located down below.